Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
I came back to life on a Tuesday morning in late October. The room smelled like bleach and dying flowers, and the first thing I saw was a ceiling tile with a rust-colored water stain that looked like a skull. I was told I'd been in a medically induced coma for 13 days after a stroke. I was 45. Fit. Ate kale. Did cardio. Didn't smoke. Didn't drink, well, not heavily. Just the occasional whiskey on a Friday night to take the edge off being married to a woman like Callie. Callie. My wife of 12 years. She wasn't there when I woke up. Neither was my phone. Or my wallet. The nurse, a sweet woman named Vera, told me Callie had come once. Day 3. Stayed for maybe 20 minutes. Didn't even ask many questions. Then she never came back. She left something else, though. A note. It was sitting on the kitchen counter when I finally got discharged and dragged myself back to our house in the dry hills outside Santa Fe. The house was empty. Cleaner than I remembered it. Cold. Every picture of us together was gone. Her closet, bare. Her perfume wasn't in the air anymore. Just dust and silence. Then I saw the note. I deserve even more than this. After everything I've been through with you. No signature. Just that. I stood there, holding the paper with shaking hands, realizing I'd been robbed not just of time, but of everything. I logged into our joint bank account. Balance, $7.41. Savings? Gone. Retirement? Wiped. Stocks? Liquidated. My classic '68 Mustang, technically hers on paper, sold. She didn't even leave the dog. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I sat down at the kitchen table and did exactly what I always do when life kicks me in the teeth. I pulled out a pen. And I made a list.
I've always believed in contingency plans. Comes from growing up with a father who disappeared for 3 months every year and a mother who never answered questions about where the bruises came from. By the time I turned 30, I had 3 emergency accounts, 2 safety deposit boxes, and a damn good lawyer on retainer. I never thought I'd need any of it for her, though. Kelly wasn't always cruel. In the beginning, she was fire, sharp, beautiful, unpredictable in a way that made you want to chase her off cliffs. We met at a jazz bar in Tempe. She drank straight tequila and corrected the band's time signature. I was hooked in 10 minutes. 12 years later, I'd come to understand that her love had conditions. And those conditions shifted like desert sand. When I saw that bank balance, $7.41, I didn't panic. Because what Callie didn't know was that I had another account. In fact, I had several. 4 years ago, when her behavior started changing, suddenly secretive, coming home late with excuses that didn't match her lipstick, I created a new LLC called Black Mesa Holdings, based out of Wyoming. That LLC owned another LLC, which held my actual assets, cash, stocks, even the land our house sat on. The shared savings she wiped out? That was my decoy. Something to keep her distracted while I protected the real nest egg. She never noticed the legal mail because it was forwarded to a P.O. box under my middle name. Never questioned why I insisted on doing the taxes myself. Never asked what happened to that 25 grand I got from selling my old software patents. I'd made sure that if things ever went sideways, I wouldn't be the one crawling. Sure, she got the car, the furniture, the pretty little things. Let her have them. But the money? The structure? The core of my life? Still mine. I drove out to Taos that week, took the long route through the canyons, breathing in the dry cold air like it could clean out the rot she left behind. Rented a modest adobe casita under the name EM Roads, an alias I used when I consulted on digital infrastructure years ago. No one knew where I was. No one except my lawyer, Michael Corwin. A 61-year-old shark in suspenders with a memory like a steel trap and no tolerance for drama. He poured me a glass of bourbon and said, "You kept the receipts?" I nodded and pulled out a hard drive. "Then let's get to work," he said. The casita I rented in Taos wasn't much: bare walls, rattling heater, a view of dead cottonwoods, but it was mine. Or at least, it felt like mine. No perfume in the bathroom. No second toothbrush. No one sighing when I made the coffee too strong. Silence has a weight when you're not used to it. It presses against your ribs, makes you confront things you'd rather ignore. But after what I just survived, death, in both body and marriage, I welcomed the pressure. It reminded me I was still here. I spent the first week doing nothing but breathing and writing. Not the kind of writing you show people. I wrote down everything Callie had ever said to me that made my stomach twist. Every insult she disguised as a joke. Every look of quiet disgust when I tried to share something real. I filled 2 notebooks with her words. And then I burned them. It wasn't for some poetic release. I just didn't want that poison sitting next to my laptop. Because that laptop, that's where the real rebuild started. See, before all this, I used to design network architecture for mid-sized corporations. The kind of work no one thanks you for until a server melts down, and you're the only one who knows how to resurrect it. It wasn't sexy, but it paid. I'd left it behind when I tried to slow down for Callie. She wanted more dinners at home, more long weekends with her friends in Sedona, more control. But now I could go back to what I was best at. And better, I could do it on my terms. I reached out to one old client, someone who owed me a favor, and asked for a small contract under my alias, EM Rhodes. 3 days later, I had my first check. Not a big one, but clean. Quiet. Mine. I created a small firm under Black Mesa Holdings, Driftline Systems. Logo, website, the works. No pictures of me. No bio. Just clean, anonymous efficiency. Within a month, I had 5 clients. Within 3, I had 14. They paid well, and they didn't ask questions. Every night, I'd go for a walk down the dirt roads outside the casita. No streetlights, just stars. I'd think about how Callie used to complain that I was always planning something, like it was a flaw. She was right. I was. And thank God for it. I didn't look at her social media. Didn't ask Corwin to find out where she went. I didn't need to know. The version of her I'd been married to already died. Whatever came after didn't concern me. But I knew something. People like Callie don't disappear quietly. Sooner or later, she'd resurface. And I'd be ready. It happened on a Thursday. Late afternoon, golden light pouring through the dusty windows like warm whiskey. I was finishing a server audit for a law firm out of Austin when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I let those go to voicemail, but something in my chest shifted. A familiar heaviness. I stared at the screen for a few seconds longer than I should have. And then, like a damn fool, I answered. "Hello?" Silence at first. Then, her voice. "Eli, it's me." It hit like static in the back of my skull. Soft. Measured. Like she thought if she spoke gently enough, it would undo everything. I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure if you'd pick up," she said. "You were right to doubt." She let out a breath. That same theatrical exhale she used when pretending to be overwhelmed. I could practically hear her checking the mirror as she spoke, making sure her sad face was just right. I heard you're back in New Mexico. I wasn't sure if it was true. But then someone said they saw you in Taos. You asking around?" "No. I mean, maybe. I just wanted to know you were okay." I could have laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insulting. "You emptied our accounts while I was unconscious, Callie. You didn't ask if I was okay then." Silence. A rustle. Maybe she was in a car. Maybe parked somewhere, hoping to stage some kind of dramatic re-entry into my life. "I know," she finally said. "And I'm sorry. I was scared." That was her favorite word, scared. She used it when she got caught lying. When she manipulated friends into choosing sides. When she cheated the first time and said it was because she felt invisible. I waited. You have every right to hate me, Eli. But I've changed. It wasn't what I thought, leaving you. I thought I'd feel free, like I was finally choosing myself. But now the money's gone. I cut in. Dead silence. I'd never heard her quiet for that long. It was beautiful. Then, almost a whisper. You think that's all I cared about? I know that's all you cared about. She tried to recover. I could hear it in her voice. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just thought, maybe we could talk. In person. And there it was. The old Callie was still alive. Still smooth. Still strategic. She didn't want closure. She wanted opportunity. I'm not the same man, Callie, I said, voice even. And I don't think you'd like who I've become. I don't believe that. No. You wouldn't. I ended the call. Blocked the number. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something warm spread through my chest. Not hate. Not revenge. Just peace. Because that call? That was her realizing the door was locked. And I had the only key. After the call, I didn't feel angry. I felt calm. Like watching a thunderstorm from behind glass. You see the lightning, you hear the thunder, but you know it can't touch you anymore. But I also knew Callie. She never made one move without another in her pocket. 3 days later, Corwin called. She's lawyering up, he said, voice flat. I didn't ask how he knew. Corwin always knew. He had people in the right circles, receptionists, paralegals, even a judge or two who owed him favors. She's claiming marital theft. Says you moved assets behind her back during the marriage. She wants discovery. I smiled. Of course she did. She doesn't know about Black Mesa? I asked. No. She thinks you funneled money into crypto. Amateur guess. Perfect. See, here's the thing. I'd never broken the law. Not once. Every asset transfer, every trust, every LLC, I documented them all. Some even before our 3rd anniversary. The fact that she never read the fine print wasn't a crime. It was a choice. But here's what was interesting. In preparing her claim, Callie would have to open her own financial history to scrutiny. And I already had more than a few threads worth pulling. Corwin had helped me dig quietly, just in case. Turns out, Callie had opened 2 accounts under her maiden name, Monroe, during our 6th year of marriage. She'd used one of them to receive monthly transfers from a man named Devin Stroud, a real estate investor out of Flagstaff. Married. 2 kids. We found hotel records. Flight logs. 1 rental home under both their names. Leverage. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to ruin her. But I wanted her out of my life completely, and for that you need leverage. I had Corwin draft a quiet letter. No threats. No posturing. Just facts. A timeline. A list of dates. Screenshots. Signed affidavits from a private investigator I never even had to meet in person. And 1 offer. Withdraw your claim. Walk away clean. Or this goes public. It took 3 days. On the morning of the 4th, Corwin texted me a screenshot, her signed withdrawal. Full relinquishment of any current or future claims. Silence in exchange for silence. No apology. No call. No drama. Just an ending. I sat outside the casita that night with a cup of coffee and stared up at the stars. Taos was quiet in early December. Cold. Honest. Everything the last few years of my life hadn't been. It was over. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I wasn't holding my breath anymore. It was January when she showed up. I just finished a call with a cybersecurity firm in Portland. I was wearing the same hoodie I'd had since college. Coffee in hand. Sun coming in low through the window. And then I saw her, standing on the gravel path in front of my casita. Leather boots. Designer coat. wind in her hair like she was in a damn perfume ad. Callie. Her voice hadn't changed. Eli, she said soft. Like the last 3 months never happened. Like she hadn't taken my savings and tried to come for more. Who gave you this address? I asked, still inside. Does it matter? It does. She didn't answer. Just stood there, blinking, hands wrapped around herself like she was cold. I was driving through. I didn't plan this. She lied. I've been thinking. About everything. I opened the door but didn't step out. She looked tired. Not broken, but worn in a way that expensive skincare couldn't fix. Her eyes scanned the inside of the casita, the plain walls, the second-hand furniture, my laptop on the table. This is where you've been. I nodded. No offense, Eli, but this isn't you. No, I said, finally stepping out. This is the part of me you never got to know. Silence stretched. She shifted on her heels. I've been thinking, she tried again, about what we had. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but we were good together once. Before all the stress. Before everything. Before you emptied our accounts while I was dying? Her face twitched. Not regret, more like frustration. Like she hated being reminded of the one thing she couldn't justify. I made mistakes, she said. But you weren't perfect either. That was always her last move. If she couldn't be right, she'd at least try to make it mutual. But something had changed in me. Maybe it was the solitude. Maybe it was the power of rebuilding with my own hands. Maybe it was peace. I smiled. You're right. I wasn't perfect. I worked too much. I trusted too long. I waited too long to build a life without you in it. She looked like she wanted to say something sharp. But there was nothing left to grab onto. Why are you really here, Callie? Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked down. I guess I just thought maybe you'd want to try again. There it was. Not love. Not apology. Just instinct. She saw something in me now. Something she could want again. But it was too late. I stepped back inside and held the door. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. But whatever it isn't here. I closed the door. She stood out there for a minute. Maybe 2. Then I heard the crunch of her boots on gravel. And then nothing. That was the last time I heard her voice. Since then, I've doubled my clients. Started mentoring a kid from Albuquerque who reminds me of myself at 25. I hike. I sleep. I breathe without flinching. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's success. Sometimes it's just walking away and letting the past watch you go. And never look back.